For me, barbecue sauce is what makes a brilliant barbecue. There's lots of beautiful things that you can do with meat and sauce, veg and sauce. So I'm here today with Sous Chef to show you my 3 favorite barbecue sauces. Okay, barbecue sauce number 1 is my smoky spicy barbecue sauce. The great thing about this one is that the sauce is actually made on the barbecue for the most part. So we're looking for these really like charred grilled vegetables, and all that smoke and all that flavor is going to go into the barbecue sauce. So once you've got all your veg barbecued, it's just literally all going to go into a blender. You don't need a fancy one like this. This is just what we happen to have hanging around the Sous Chef kitchen. Anything that will blend, an immersion blender is fine. Anything that's going to chop it relatively finely. As you can see, we've got quite a lot of char on these. This kind of amount of char I think is absolutely fine. I like it going in the sauce. I took the chilies a little far, not gonna lie, so we are gonna get rid of some of that from it. We don't want all of that. Just a little is fine, and it'll peel off really easily. So depending on the spice level of your chilies, you might want to pull the seeds out, but we are going for a spicy barbecue sauce, so I'm going to leave them in. I'm just going to pull the top off. So then we have our tomatoes. Again, I think skin's fine. I'm not bothered by that at all. Just take the tops off. I've got 2 small peppers. If your peppers are quite big, then just 1 is fine. And then 1 whole onion, which I've charred. And with your garlic, you can just slip the nicely softened cloves into the mix. If you want it less garlicky, just put slightly fewer cloves in. So now we're just gonna add all of our other elements. So we're taking 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. Then here comes some vinegar for the sourness. 2 tablespoons of vinegar. I was a little bit more generous with that. I like it a little bit sharper. Teaspoon of salt, normal bog standard salt. Don't be using anything fancy there. A tablespoon of sweet paprika. If you really want to go spicy, you can add some hot paprika, but it can get very hot, so just be careful. And then last of all, 2 tablespoons of bog standard tomato ketchup. Again, this adds to the sweetness. It's got that acidity to it as well, and it really brings the whole sauce together. So all we're going to do now is blend this till it's really smooth, and then we can just set that aside, and then we'll move on to our next sauce, which is a Romesco sauce, which maybe isn't what you traditionally think of as like a barbecue sauce, but trust me, you're going to want it at your next barbecue. So the base of Romesco sauce is charcoal peppers. So you can get them in a jar. That's a perfectly good substitute. But as we've got the barbecue out, I have done our own. So you've got them to a really, really good char. You want to have that kind of like really, really blackened skin, because that's what gives it the charcoal flavor. But what we are going to do is we're going to slip the skins off. You can do it really easily just by using your fingers. And you don't need to get absolutely every piece of skin off. You just want to make sure that you're not getting loads and loads of that really charred skin in the sauce. We're going to add a really good tablespoon of smoked sweet paprika. If you really like it spicy, you go for hot, but I prefer it to have a more mellow flavour. 2 tablespoons of tomato puree. This jar is massive overkill, but that's fine. We can use it for something else. Teaspoon of salt. Normal fine sea salt is fine. And then around 150 grams of ground almonds. Couple of tablespoons of sherry vinegar, or red wine vinegar is fine too. It just adds to the kind of acidic, sort of sweet, sour flavour that we're looking for in a barbecue sauce. And then lastly, you need a good 150 mils of olive oil. It needs to be decent olive oil because you're going to taste it otherwise. And what this will do is it'll emulsify with the peppers and the moisture in it, and you'll get this really rich emulsified sauce. Okay, so we're ready to blend. We're going to blend this up until it's nice and smooth, pop it in a jar, and then we're going to move on to sauce number 3. Our third and final sauce that I love using for the barbecue is an Agrodolce sauce. Agrodolce literally means sweet and sour in Italian, and it combines a lot of really sweet things like raisins and honey, and some sour things like vinegar and this lovely verjus. So first thing we're going to do is just thinly slice some chili. So again, best thing to do is just have a little test of how hot your chilies are. You can do this by wiping your finger on it and just tipping it on your tongue. These are mildly hot, so I'm going to slice them pretty finely. If you don't want it quite so hot, you can take the seeds out, but I'm going to leave these in. I've got some lovely golden raisins here. If you can't find golden ones, that's absolutely fine. Just use any old raisins, they would do, or sultanas would do as well. About half of these, probably about a tablespoon and a half, I'm going to roughly chop, and the rest I'm going to leave whole. All of this, along with all of your other ingredients, are going to go in a small pan because we're going to pop it on the hob. Chilies can go in, the raisins can go in, the remaining whole raisins that you've got can go in. And now we're on to our wet ingredients. So the sweet comes mostly from this honey, but there's a lot of sweetness in the verjus as well, and there's a little bit of sweetness in the sherry vinegar. So I'm going to go with 3 generous tablespoons of honey, and then a decent amount, around 150 mils of really good either sherry vinegar or red wine vinegar. And then we're going to use some of the verjus. Now the verjus is like a milder, sweeter, but still quite acidic wine vinegar crossover. So it brings a really lovely sweetness, and it stops becoming too sharp and too like acerbic. So around 50 mils of this. So that's the kind of basis for your agrodolce sauce. I'm actually going to add some chili flakes in, just for a little bit more heat and a little bit more smokiness. So these are Aleppo pepper flakes, just a little pinch to give it another level. And then lastly, I'm going to pop some of these really beautiful pine nuts in. This is really just for texture and for a little bit of flavour. They're completely optional, I just think they're really lovely. So now you've got all your ingredients in the pan, all you need to do is heat it up on the hob and let it reduce slightly. So now we've got our 3 sauces, I'm going to show you just a couple of ways to use them and explain a load more. So starting off with our Romesco sauce. This is a great sauce for using for more like delicate things. So we've got a lovely cauliflower steak here that I've barbecued. So it makes a really great like veggie option for anyone who's veggie or not veggie, if I'm honest. So Agrodolce is a really punchy sauce. So it's really good for livening up things like halloumi, which I've got here. Even if you've got something a bit more like autumnal, like pumpkin, things that need a little bit of livening, these work really well. And for our smoky, barbecued, spicy barbecue sauce, I recommend something quite fatty. It's got like a lot of acidity, but also a lot of smokiness to it. So something like chicken wings would work really well. So there you have it, 3 amazing sauces, 3 ways to use them. Head to Sous Chef for the full feature and loads more ideas on how to barbecue and use barbecue sauce.